Easily vectors can be defined as electrical signal that has direction. There are certain rules regarding vectors. So number one rule would be vectors, they cancel each other if they are in opposite direction. For example, one vector is in this direction and the other one is opposite to it. So what would happen? They would cancel each other and the result would be a zero. Now, the second one rule is that vectors add up if they are in the same direction. For example, this is your vector number 1 and this is your vector number 2. So they would add up to make a vector which would be greater in energy to both of them. For example, this is with 2 and 2, so this would be a vector with a voltage of 4. The third one is if vector at a right angle to one another, so either they add or they may subtract and they may change the direction. For example, at an angle to one another, this is vector 1, this is vector 2. So we can get a mean vector which would add up and would point in a separate, in a changed direction as to the initial both of the two vectors. Certain principles regarding vectorial analysis is that the arrowhead of a vector usually points in positive direction towards the positive direction, and the length of the vector is proportional to the voltage of the potential. So there are a lot of impulses which varies in size and intensity and in direction, so they sum up to form an instantaneous mean vector. The normal mean QRS vector is about 59 degrees. So in a normal heart, the average direction of the vector during the spread of depolarization wave through the ventricles is called the mean QRS vector, which is about 59 degrees, shown here in this diagram. This means that during most of the depolarization wave, the apex of the heart usually remains positive with respect to the base of the heart. So this is your hexaaxial lead diagram reference system. If you remember the Ethiopian triangle, we'll not be doing this into a triangle, just print that triangle on a circle. So you'll get something, some diagram like this. So this is supposed to be your right side and this is supposed to be your left side. So we're doing different limb leads now, followed by the augmented limb leads. So this is lead 1, which makes an angle of about 0 degrees. Lead 2, that is in the direction of the cardiac axis, normal cardiac axis is 59, so take 60 roundabout. This is lead 2. And then you have lead 3, which makes an angle of about 120 degrees. So now the augmented limb leads, AVL, make an angle of minus 30, AVR minus 150, and AVF plus 90 degrees. Now the relative positioning is important. Their degrees are important. You have to memorize them, because if first of all doing the normal. So what is the normal cardiac axis? The normal cardiac axis would lie somewhere in between this plus 90 to minus 30. This is your normal cardiac axis. If any vector is pointing in this direction, so you would say that okay, this is normal cardiac axis. But if it's certain disease conditions or physiological condition, your axis might shift. So if it shifts from, that is, it's around lying between minus 30 and minus 90, so you will say that this is left axis deviation. It would be left axis deviation. Now it's easy for you to say the right axis deviation, that would lie somewhere here from 120 to about plus 180. This would be your right axis deviation. And here, that is minus 180 to minus 90. This is your extreme axis deviation, or also called as the northwest disease. So these are the normal axes of the unipolar limb leads. As we know that AVL, it has axis of about minus 30 degrees. AVR minus 150 degrees, and AVL is at about plus 90 degrees. Now you must know the ECG presentations of these three unipolar limb leads. As you can see here, AVR is pointing up the cardiac axis. Let me take the pen once again. The cardiac axis is usually pointing in this direction. So since AVR is the current is moving here, so it would be negative deflection. So AVR, usually on ECG you would see a negative deflection, whereas AVF a strong positive because it's near the cardiac axis, pointing towards here and making an angle that would potentiate it. And AVL would be equiphasic or positive because it is also making an angle. Some of the charges will be moving over here, making an angle perpendicular to it. So it would be either equiphasic or positive, weak positive. So, whenever the cardiac impulse it enters the ventricle through the atrioventricular bundle, the first part of the ventricle to become depolarized is the left endocardial surface of the septum. Here you can see an A, and then progressively in B, C, and D, the rest of the heart becomes depolarized in a sequence of endocardial surfaces of first the septum, and then the endocardial surfaces of the rest of the heart, and then the outside of the heart. Now in B, you can see half of the heart is ventricle is depolarized and half of it is not. So it has a great mean resultant vector in B as compared to the other forms. You can see side by side there is formation of different waves as this vector passes by, which we have discussed yesterday, the formation of the Q, R, and S complex, the T wave. So these are the explanation for the diagram. Done this. Ventricular muscle, all of the ventricle has repolarized. Now the process of repolarization will be starting over here. This starts at about 0.5 second later after full depolarization has occurred. And this repolarization is usually complete by 0.35 second. So by this repolarization, we get the T wave formation. Now the first area to repolarize is near the apex of the heart. As we did the repolarization process, we discussed that the septal areas are first to depolarize. So you must be thinking that they should be repolarizing first, but no. As they have longer period of contraction than most of the external surfaces of the heart, they won't be repolarizing first. The apex, you can see the light tan areas over here, they will be first to repolarize. Now you can see the vector, the direction of the vector, the black pointing at different places, and you can see the different leads in which you can get different deflections at. Because the outer apical surface of the ventricle repolarize before the inner areas. You can see it over here. So the positive end of the overall ventricular vector during repolarization is towards the apex of the heart. So we'll get a positive deflection in all the three leads, that is 1, 2, and 3, after the completion of the T wave. Now the repolarized areas, the same thing will have a positive charge first, therefore a positive net vector. Atrial depolarization begins at the sinus node and spreads through the AV node. It has also a positive deflection in all the three leads, 1, 2. Atrial repolarization wave, the T wave usually not seen as it is buried within the QRS complex, and the atrial depolarization is slower. So the first area to repolarize is also the first to repolarize as well. Vector cardiogram here shown in this picture. As by now we know that vector of current flow through the heart changes rapidly as the impulse spreads through the myocardium, and then this is in two aspects. The length of the vector you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the reference point where it is fully depolarized, and you can see the direction of the vectors as well. So two aspects. First of all, the vector either increases or decreases in length, and then it changes its direction as the direction of the electric potential from the heart changes. So this is so called as vector cardiogram, which depicts these changes at different times during different aspects of the cardiac cycle. So one note that you can make clearly over here is when half of the ventricle is depolarized and half is repolarized, you can see that the vector is largest. This would be at point 2. We previously discussed about excess, the normal cardiac excess, then what would happen if there is right excess deviation, the left excess deviation, and extreme excess deviation. Now, how are you going to see it on ECG? This is a picture taken from your Guyton. In other books, there are different reference points. For example, in this, you have lead 1, 2, and 3. On an ECG strip, you can just look at lead 1 and AVF as well. So it should be normally it should be positive in lead 1 and lead 3 as well, or AVF if you're using that for reference. So the deflections should be positive. Now what happens in left axis deviation? This is an example of a left axis deviation. If you look at lead 1, it's positive, but if you look at lead 3, it's negative. So this is left axis deviation. If you draw these vectors, so you'll be seeing that it comes around the left axis. Now, what causes left axis deviation? It can be physiological causes and pathological. Physiological normal causes can be due to expiration, lying down, or in very obese individuals. And pathologically, if there is left ventricular hypertrophy, so the axis would be shifting towards the left side because of the greater muscle mass. Left bundle branch block, hypertension, aortic valvular stenosis, regurgitation, and the list goes on. So this is a typical example on an ECG of left axis deviation. You look at lead 1 and 3, they both should be upgoing. They should be positive deflection, but lead 1 you see positive, lead 2 you see negative. This is left axis. So these are just the causes that we done: hypertrophy of the left ventricle, hypertension, stenosis, regurg. Okay, now this is an example of the right axis deviation. Now in the right axis deviation, the lead 1 you see, it would be negative, it would be downgoing, and lead 3 would be upgoing. And if you calculate this, it comes out to the axis is shifted towards the right. Now for the right as well, there are causes physiological and pathological. So physiologically, in standing and in inspiration or thin or tall individuals, you will have right axis deviation, and then you have the right ventricular hypertrophy or the right bundle branch block or pulmonary valve diseases, tetralogy of Fallot, and the list goes on. So this is example of the right axis deviation. I didn't have any example of the extreme axis deviation, but just for your information, in extreme axis deviation, if you look at lead 1 and AVF, both of them would be negative, or 1 or 3. It's equal. You see at lead 1 or 3, or mostly we look at lead 1 and AVF. So in extreme axis deviation, both of them would be negative. So instances where increased voltages in the standard bipolar limb leads, if the sum of all the 1, 2, and 3 is more than 4 millivolts, then we consider this as a high voltage EKG. And what could be the reasons for it? Hypertension, or in marathon. Decreased voltages in standard bipolar limb leads, the QRS complexes could be due to different infarcts, old infarcts, or fluids or surrounding the heart. For example, the pleural effusions or emphysemas, or maybe rotation of the apex of the heart, which would dissipate the voltages, and therefore the QRS complex would be. Now, the prolonged QRS complex normal is about 0.06 to 0.08. And one example is due to cardiac hypertrophy or the Purkinje system block, where QRS exceeds 0.12 seconds. Usual cause is. Another important concept is current of injury. What is current of injury? For example, if there is infarction in some part of the heart due to MI, now some or scarring in some area of the heart, this area has now become injured. So now the injured area, this has a tendency to accumulate cations, positive ions, and therefore emitting negativity. They're usually depolarized all the time because of cation loading in this area. So the injured muscle emits negative charges throughout each heartbeat. Beat. So what are the causes of current of injury? Can be local ischemia, mechanical trauma, or infection. It is important to note the current of injury on ECG. And so we have certain points on ECG to recognize. First of all, at the end of the S wave, the ventricles are fully depolarized, and this is called as a J point. and then the J point and the TP segment uh, should be on the same line. If they are not on the same line, it means that there is some injury in the heart and there is a current emitting from it. For example, if when all of the depolarization is complete, when the repolarization starts or repolarization is complete, the injured area would continuously give electrical currents because it is always all the time depolarized. So these electrical potentials can be recorded on ECG and we can know the area where this injury is occurring, has occurred. So we plot the voltages of the current of injury on coordinates of the three leads to determine the electrical axis. In this diagram, first of all, look at the, let me take the laser pointer. First of all, this is the J point. Just when the depolarization is complete, it is the end of the S wave, it has been marked, this is the J point. Now from the J point, we draw a horizontal line, and at this time there should be no, because there is complete depolarization, it is completed depolarization and repolarization has started. So there should be no emission of any wave line over here. But you can see there is, if you draw a horizontal line from the J point, you can see the current of injury. This is called as a current of injury, abnormal electrical potential from the injured area. And here you can see it is the positive direction both in lead 2 and in lead 3. This is a J point. From the J point, you would draw a horizontal line, and this is above the horizontal line, and in lead 1, this is below the horizontal line. This is just, and you can see here in this diagram when all of the ventricle has repolarized, still this part which is injured is emitting impulses, and this is being recorded on an ECG in a form of current of injury. And for current of injury, you must know what is J point, and from the J point you draw coordinates and then further calculate the axis of the current. So here now it is more clear to you. This is a J point, and then you draw a straight horizontal line from here, and you will see where is the current of injury here. It is in the positive direction. It is above the isoelectric line. It is above the line that you have drawn from the J point. And here, where is the current of injury? It is below the point. This is a J point. You draw a straight line, horizontal line from here, and you see the current of injury is below that line. So this is a negative potential. Just don't go into hassle of calculating the excesses because it's least important for you at this point. So now the anterior and posterior wall infarcts, we can also see if they are positive or negative deflections, and calculated whether the current of injury comes from an anterior or posterior wall of the heart is determined usually by looking at the chest lead, not the limb leads, of course, because they are placed anteriorly and it would cover all of the horizontal aspect of your heart. So if the current of injury in the chest lead is negative, then the chest lead is in the area of negative potential, which indicates an anterior lesion. ECG, uh, a positive current of injury in the chest lead indicates a posterior lesion. If the current of injury is above the isoelectric line that you have drawn, if it is positive direction, then you must calculate that this is a lesion posterior. But if it is negative, then you must say that the lesion is. So here you can see, and for this we have to see the chest leads. So here the current of injury is greater in V2. This is the maximum. You can see here the wave that this would be the J point, and if you start the end of the S wave and the start, this would be the J point. If you draw a horizontal line from here, you can see the current of injury is negative. That is below that. It is below this line that you have drawn, the horizontal line. It is below this line, so we can easily say that the infarct is anterior, in the anterior. And here you can this is the posterior wall infarct. Again we will look at V2. Please don't confuse yourself in these diagrams and don't try to calculate them. Least important for you, just here in this V2, we can just, by looking at this chest lead, we can say that, for example, this is your QR, and this is your S, and this is your J point. If you draw a coordinate, a horizontal line from here, you can see the current of injury here. It is above this line. It is in a positive direction. So this is a posterior wall infarction. So now the T wave abnormalities. So T wave, when you're looking at the T wave and its abnormalities, there are 4 points that you should keep in mind. Number one, let me take the pen. Where is the marker? The T wave should not be peaked or tented like this. It should not be peaked or tented. Then it's abnormal. It usually happens in hyperkalemia or certain other disorders. So by looking at the shape of it, it should never be peaked or tented. Then it should not have a broad base. For example, like this, a greater broad base. It should never be like this again. It should not be symmetrical. For example, this is your T wave, and you can make out a symmetry in it, equal on both the sides. It should not be looking like this. It should not have a symmetry. Then it should not be hyperacute. For example, if its amplitude exceeds the amplitude of QRS complex. For example, if we look at ECG, P, Q, R, S complex, and then you have a T wave, but the T wave is also having the same amplitude or even a greater amplitude than the QRS complex. So it is called as hyperacute. So, but just looking at the shape of it, number one, should not be peaked or tented. Number two, should not have a broad base, should not be symmetrical, and should not be hyperacute. So just by looking at it, you would just know whether this is abnormal T wave or normal T wave. Ventricular repolarization usually occurs in the opposite direction as depolarization, which causes an upright T wave in all the limb leads. So prolongation of repolarization may change the T wave axis. So here, whenever there is the conduction of depolarization impulse through the ventricles is greatly delayed, let's say an example of left bundle branch block is given over here. The T wave is almost always of opposite polarity to that of the QRS complex. It means it would be inverted. Here you can see mild ischemia. Let me take the marker. So difficult to change these things. So in mild ischemia, you can see the T wave, it's inverted. Uh, so you should not, and then again, you should not never have an inverted T wave as well. And this is an example of digitalis toxicity in which you can see a biphasic T wave, a positive and a negative, a positive and a negative. You shouldn't have a biphasic T wave as well. We're over with the T wave and towards the end of our lecture. So these are the objectives. So, understand how to determine the mean QRS vector using standard vectorial analysis, learn the axis of bipolar limb leads, learn the zero reference point, the J point is, and understand what determines the mean axis of the ventricular T wave and the atrial T wave, what factors cause electrical, and what factors cause increase or decrease voltages in your different limb leads and prolonged or unusual QRS complexes, and the factors that cause current of injury and how to determine the mean axis of the current of injury. So this is the end. Thank you. See you again.